Forgive me for being exactly who I am. Forgive me for crossing paths once again. Isn't it funny that life dictates who I am?
So, nice to meet you. What's your name?
Erin Clark.
All right, Erin. So where do you live in the Louisville area?
Well, I actually live in Grange, Kentucky, but my husband and I lived in the Highlands, Germantown area for, 12 years. Well, he lived there longer than me. He's lived in Louisville his whole life. But I lived there with him for about 12 years.
Okay. So then you're not necessarily, I mean, you may be born in Louisville, I don't know, but you haven't lived here your whole life. So where else have you lived?
Lots of different places. I was actually born in Jacksonville, Florida. Then we moved back to Louisville. And then we moved to Brentwood, Tennessee. And then we moved to Avon, Connecticut. And then we moved back to Louisville, Kentucky. And then we moved back to Brentwood, Tennessee. And then from there, I lived in Louisiana for a short period. And then I met Scott and I moved back to Louisville.
Wow. So you've been a lot of places. I like the odd Northeast Connecticut.
Right.
Just thrown in there with everything else.
Southern and then way up there.
So I assume then it sounds like you've been a lot of places. Experience-wise, have you experienced any challenges in your life, just in general?
Well, I mean, moving was always a challenge, but that was a long time ago. So most recently, when Scott and I first got married, we decided we wanted to try for a family right away. And that took us on a 9-year journey to conceive and grow our family. And in which time we also adopted a girl from foster care.
Oh, wow.
So those have all been challenging things in my life. And then, just navigating all of that. And then we ended up conceiving. And now I've got a toddler who wears me out.
Well, that's what toddlers are for, right?
Yes.
To keep mom from sleeping.
Right.
So in a 9-year journey to have your own family, were there, what's that like? What are things that the average person doesn't know, who might know someone who's going through that, but if we've never been through it, we don't know the trials and tribulations. What are some of the things you would like people to know about that process?
If you know someone that's going through infertility, just listen. Giving advice is, I know it's well-intentioned, but a lot of times it's not as helpful as the person giving the advice would want to think that it is. Probably that if somebody's going through that, they should probably get in touch with a therapist because it's not, when you're going through it, most likely you're in a point in your life where all your friends are having kids and you're going to baby showers. And so you're having to, go through this experience with other people being successful with their pregnancies and delivering and all of that. And then, I'm over here, listening to people say, oh, it took me 6 months. And I'm like 8 years over here.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Not even the same.
Right. I like what you said about offering advice, because people just don't want to see you hurt. So they're going to offer things that they think are going to help, but you're just wanting probably to be seen for who you are and where you are, not have people try to put you in some other place with advice or whatever. It's well-meaning, it's well-intentioned, but
absolutely,
like you said, just listen. People just want to be seen and heard.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's unfortunate too, because I'm a member of a group on Facebook called Resolve, and you see other people's journeys, and a lot of time, and even a neighbor of mine down the street, I was having a conversation with her. She went through some infertility treatments, but she got to a point, and a lot of people do, where they can't afford it anymore, because it's not covered by insurance, which I believe. I mean, it's not something that like we did to ourselves to make us infertile. Like, I think it should be something that should be covered by insurance. But a lot of people get to a point where they just can't go. They financially can't go anymore. And that's so sad. I mean, that makes me so sad for people.
Yeah.
And, people always say, well, that you can always adopt. And we did that. We adopted. And that in itself has been very challenging. And we decided, I've always been the kind of person, like, I adopted all my animals and all of that. So, when we were considering adoption, we did want a younger child, but, my mindset was, well, here's this child that's not going to get adopted because she's older. And so, we should be the ones to do that for her. And while it is, very, we were very, I guess, kind. It's been very challenging. And a lot of people don't realize, how challenging, it is adopting an older child. Especially when it's, you're adopting from the state, and the state's whole goal is to get children into homes, which is, great, but they don't disclose, all of the absolute pertinent information. And so, it's been a journey to figure out what she needs and what we can do to help her and how to, survive all of this.
So I assume that means when you adopt an older child, if they've been in the system, and
Yes.
so they may have, because they've just had more experience in life in general, they may have also had more trauma. And so is that something that's not disclosed to you when you adopt someone that's older, or do they just let you know kind of some broad strokes, but you don't really know the specifics?
They let you know, so it was a fight for us to even get the information on her initially. My brother-in-law adopted from the foster care system an older child, and he was kind of guiding us as to things that we need to be asking about and asking for. And like, there's this whole packet that is with every kid. It's like the history of this child, and it discloses a lot of information. And when she first moved into our house, we initially were being told, well, she really doesn't have any issues. She's got chapped hands. And we were like, okay, that's not nothing.
She's got a scrape on her knee.
Right. And then, once she was once she was in our home, actually, for like the first couple months, like it was the honeymoon period. And I remember Scott telling Jason, I don't think there's anything wrong with this kid. She's an angel. She's just going to be perfect. And once that period ended, it was really tough. She's diagnosed. Let me just give you her diagnoses. She's diagnosed with reactive attachment disorder, PTSD, and bipolar. And so the reactive attachment disorder really is where she struggles to understand other people's feelings. So like, if she does something, she'll do something to like get back at you, but then when you're mad at her or you're sad because she did something, she just completely doesn't faze her at all. She doesn't get it. And dealing with a disorder like that, I mean, that was not disclosed to us at all. She had not been diagnosed with that when she first moved in with us. So when she first moved in with us, they told us that she had a diagnosis of ADHD, which like almost every kid in the United States has ADHD now.
Yeah.
And they said that she had oppositional defiance disorder, but it wasn't like an extreme case. And so, you know, we were like, okay. And then as we've gotten further and further along with her, trying to find the like resource or getting a hold of resources for her has also been a challenge.
Does that mean finding the resources is a challenge, or actually getting them to come to reply to you?
Both. So, you know, every time, like we've had to have her hospitalized several times, and she's been in residential treatment as well a couple of times. She's actually in residential treatment right now. But like each step of the way, each time that she was in the hospital or each time that she's been in some sort of treatment, you know, I feel like I find a little tidbit more of information of something that can help. But it's unfortunate because it's not all in the same place. Like there's not like a resource where you can just go and be like, okay, this is what's going on with my child, and then see all the resources that could possibly be available. It's really about just like, it's like going down a rabbit hole. Like you just keep going and connecting with people. And then, you know, some people have good, like better information or a different source that I can go to and talk to. But then even like, you know, I was trying to get her into the Phoenix School for Discovery, which is a therapeutic public school in Jefferson County, which is incredible. And I went and visited the school, and it was amazing. I felt like it was going to be a great fit. The waiting list is 500 kids.
Wow. How big is the school? How many kids do you know?
So they have 6th, 7th, and 8th, and then all of high school. So freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. But there's only I think max of 10 kids in a class. There's a special ed teacher and a resource teacher in every class.
Wow.
And it's a bit, I mean, that's what she needed. And I could not, I tried every which way, you know, to get her in there, and I just couldn't. And she ended up not, I mean, she's supposed to go to Oldham County Middle, but the past 2 years she's made it like 4 days in school and then ended up back in the hospital. So it's just not that kind of public settings, like regular public school for her. It just doesn't, you know, it doesn't work for her. But then trying to get a hold of, like, that's the getting a hold of resources to help is sometimes not available. And
do you find the resources, once you do get a hold of them, are they helpful? I mean, obviously, like the school, it's unfortunate you have this huge waiting list. They can only take obviously so many kids because they have to have the resources,
right,
teachers essentially for 10 kids to handle all this. Mm-hmm. And I think what you see a lot of times is that the systems they're not big enough. There's more people that need help than there are people to help.
Right.
And so when you're finding these systems throughout this journey, are you finding that most of them are just maybe like understaffed or underfunded, or, you know, is that one of the, what do you think would help fix this, other than obviously the information is not freely available and you fought for that.
Right.
So maybe some sort of like a hub of information would be nice. But,
yes.
what do you see that would help the scenario, the situations? What do you need?
Well, so I had a conversation when I went to go visit the Phoenix school. I had a conversation with the principal, and because I told him I was trying to weasel my way in. And so I was like, the waiting list is 500 people, like 500 kids. And he was like, oh, he goes, I didn't know it was that big. He's like, but he goes, that just shows the need that we have. And he said, the what keeps Jefferson County from being able to do those schools is because they can't take that many kids and they're expensive. So, I mean, it comes down to funding, and like, I understand, like people complain about, taxes always going up, and it's to pay for like, we want better schools and all of that. But, I guess, taxes have to go up to support our kids. Not an astronomical amount, but obviously she is not the only kid that is in need of services like that who is not receiving them.
Yeah, and then you have the dichotomy is, then taxes go up, but they also go up on the parents who are struggling to make it day to day.
I know.
They've got kids, and so it's like
know.
this whole. It's just one of the things where it's a difficult. There are a lot of. It seems like there's a lot of situations where it's a difficult win. It's a difficult thing to figure out.
Right.
If money wasn't involved.
Right.
And it was just people caring, that would be a great thing. But
right.
money seems to be the bottleneck for most things.
Yeah. And then it goes into, and then I start thinking, well, like, what if they could bill insurance, like partially bill insurance for that? But I don't know even if her insurance would cover, several years of, her being in a special school like that, because, she's been in residential care, and we've had to fight with her insurance because they wanted to cut her off from being in residential care, not because she was getting better, but because she wasn't making any progress. And they didn't want to pay for something where she wasn't making any progress. So instead of being like, well, we'll do something different, they were just like, oh, well, she's not making progress, send her home.
And home, what does that, can you describe, or I don't want to pry, but can you describe, so what is home like? What is the, I guess, the dynamic or whatever that results in the hospitalization or the,
so the things that result in hospitalization, when she is refusing to take her medication, when she is threatening harm to herself or harm to us, when she's gotten physical with us, she's run away on multiple occasions. She's hopped in strangers' cars. She's flagged down strangers. And all of these things happen. Sometimes we don't even know why she is raging. And part of that is the bipolar. Sure. But then, and sometimes she'll get, like, we call it a negative loop, where she gets onto something negative and nothing that you say will make it better. And then she gets mad when you're not listening and engaging with her in the negative loop, and says that you're not listening. And so, like, there's no win.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't stop the loop, and you can't probably mentally and emotionally participate in the loop. It's not going to do anything anyway, but.
Right. Exactly. And so let me just give you a couple of examples. So what ended her in the previous residential treatment was, she had a bad day at school. She came home from school, and 30 minutes before a football game, told us that we had to take her to a football game. I said, no, had a bad day at school. we were just going to chill tonight. And she tried to run away, and Scott stopped her from running away, and by threatening to smash her iPad, because that was the only thing that was going to stop her.
But she doesn't care about things.
Right.
She's not attached to things.
Right. So then she came back inside, and she went down to her bedroom, and she cut her wrist and she cut her face because we wouldn't take her to a football game. And like she goes to the extreme to prove a point and to get her way. Yeah. She is highly manipulative, and she's really good at it. Like, she should be an attorney, like really should be an attorney. Like, she's really good at it.
Well,
We've watched her do it to other people.
just lost all the manipulative attorneys who listen to the show.
Right.
But she's good at thinking on her feet and, taking people down a path or working a room or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. She's really good at she like, it's like a one-track mind. Like, she knows what she wants, and she's going to try and figure out a way to get there no matter what.
Yeah. So where are you at this point in the system or in your family or whatever? What are some of the issues you're facing currently?
So currently, my is in residential care. She has been there since October. And she ended up there due to multiple running away instances. And then making threats to harm us as a family. But she leveled up, and she was able to come home for Christmas.
Nice.
But where we are is, so she was able to level up last time right around Christmas time, because there's not any stressors. There's not schools. There's no social interactions really. When she comes home, like, there's no cleaning your room or doing laundry or chores or anything like that, which are all things that can set her off at any time. But so we're hoping that, the Christmas momentum will push through and she will continue, forward progress. But in our experience, that hasn't been the case in the past. I'm sure everyone has a turning point in their life. We're hoping that hers comes sooner rather than later, where she kind of realizes that what she's doing to her life. So right now she's in residential care, and we are at a point where if she's not better, if her insurance decides to say that they're not going to pay anymore, we have to give custody to the state so that she can stay in the facility long enough to get the help that she needs, which is, it's so unfortunate that you would even have to do that to get somebody help that they so clearly need.
But she has to be like in their custody in order to get the state help, I guess. Is that what you're saying? Why can't the state help now? Is that just because she's not a ward of the state?
I had all of those questions too. So we were trying to file. It's called filing for dependency. Okay. When the child that you have adopted, you're giving the custody back to the state. You're not giving up. You're like, we're still going to be her parents. Okay. And we would still participate in family sessions, and the goal will always be reunification, if and when she's ready, until she's 18. Now, if she doesn't get better by the time she's 18, then we lose custody, which we're all hoping and praying that doesn't get to that point. we're all hoping that it doesn't get to the point of having to put her in state's custody, because I know that that's going to, set back her reactive attachment disorder. But, I mean, for her she needs to be healthy to be home, because she makes it nearly impossible to keep her safe when she's not healthy and she's at home. Not only keep her safe, but keep us safe as well. So when the state won't take custody now because her insurance is paying for her to be at the facility, and as it stands right now, she's getting the help that she needs. They won't step in until they determine that she still needs help, but her insurance won't pay for it anymore.
Okay. All right. Wow. So that's tough. I'm glad that you still get to keep, I guess, parental rights or
right.
what have you, and be involved. So, in navigating all of these systems, what would you like to see done that would help somebody else in your position to not have to go through what you've gone through?
Oh gosh, if the state could, if the state could be more organized.
I can only imagine, because it's got to be hard to, I assume you have this agency that does X and you have this one that does Y, this one that does Z. They're not necessarily communicating. You've got to bridge the gap and try to figure out who they all are and what they all do.
Right.
That's a lot. I mean, it's a full-time job. I would assume just figuring out who all the players are and how they all relate.
Right.
What the rules are.
Yeah, absolutely. It would be amazing if you could just go to one place and, find, a whole bunch of host of resources that parents could use and take advantage of. Just to give you an example, Scott and I have been looking for some support group to go to. And the social worker, I called the social worker in Oldham County, and she gave me the name to a place, and I go and look it up, and it's a religious organization where if I want to start a support group, I can register with them, but I have to go to their church. I was like, well, that's not helpful.
No.
And then I ended up finding through my yoga teacher training, there was a lady there that knew of a resource, and I looked it up, and they actually have a support group in Oldham County. I was like, finally. But I mean, it's like they should have resources like that, all in one place, put it all together and then update it every so often, and have it available for parents so they know what their resources are, and where they can go.
I was going to say, it sounds like you almost need like a mentor to guide you through the system, but is that not, I've not been one or interacted with one. Is this not what a social worker does?
Well, it depends on the social worker.
Okay. Gotcha.
But
having the information freely available where you could access it and not depend on a particular individual to help you figure out where to go would help.
Yes. Just like a part of Metro government website, just be able to go and click on there and just scroll down services, and, maybe even if you could type in what kind of mental disease or disorder or, tutoring or whatever, just type in, a keyword and be able to pull up, what resources might relate to that particular thing. That would be hugely helpful. If I had something like that from the beginning, she might have still ended up in residential treatment. I know she's got a lot of struggles, but, I feel like we would have been better prepared from the get-go. Yeah. And I just, if there was just a universal place, and we have so an example of a social worker, we have a post-adoption worker, and literally every time that something happened, every time that went into a hospital or went into residential treatment, I would message this lady and say, hey, I'm looking for this, or I'm trying to do this, or, any help. And she would just she would either say, I can't help you with that, or it would be so it was like struggling at school. She was saying that she was, seeing demons and like all this crazy stuff and threatening to kill herself. And so I messaged her post-adoption worker and said, hey, do you think that we could get her like into a different school or whatever to better suit her, emotional and behavioral needs? And the social worker messaged back, have you tried tutoring? It's like, that's not even the issue.
That's a behavioral and mental and emotional issue. It's not a math issue,
right?
Or English class,
right.
or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, so through this whole journey, say there's somebody else out there who watches this who's going through a similar thing. What would you tell them? How would you encourage them to keep going? Because I know it's got to be tough.
I would say, oh gosh, group therapy, not group therapy, but like support group would be really helpful. Just knowing that there are other people out there that are going through what you're going through and that understand, because from the perspective, my mom has even told me this, like, you don't know what somebody's going through who has a child like with these disabilities, what it's like until you're living in it.
Yeah.
And so, another thing, you have to do what's best for your child, and what's best for your child, and it doesn't matter what anybody else says. And even though it's hard, try not to get frustrated when people try to give you advice that is not great.
Yeah.
Like, you should just take your child off all of her medication. She doesn't need to be on medication. I'm just like, you don't live in my house.
Yeah, and those are
I have seen my child off of medication.
Those are some pretty serious disorders that often require medication for a healthy life, and
right.
And that's okay. And medication is a tool. It's one tool of many.
Right.
You're trying to get her access to other tools that will help her behaviorally and such.
Right.
But yeah, again, it comes down to unsolicited advice, right?
Right. Yeah.
Never a
Don't
great
want
thing.
any unsolicited advice.
Yeah, I understand. Okay, well, so I like to end these episodes with some rapid fire questions just to get to know you a little bit more as a person.
Sure.
Because although you're going through this isn't the totality of who you are. You're a person like anyone else. And so everybody eats food. So you can only go to one restaurant locally for the rest of your life. Where are you going to eat?
Cashmere.
Cashmere, nice. Got a favorite
Indian, dish? Love cashmere. I could eat it. I really could eat that like for every meal.
Is there a favorite dish?
Chicken sog is my favorite.
All right.
I used to get it 5 times hot, but I cannot handle that anymore. I'm like 2 times hot now.
Diminishing returns.
Right.
So I stopped by your house on the weekend and you're home. What might I catch you doing? What are you doing?
Playing with Waylon or cleaning out my chicken coop.
Nice. All right. So I come by your house on the weekend and you're not home. Where might you be?
Probably out to eat.
Kashmir.
Well, see, it's funny. Like, that's my favorite place, but Waylon can't eat there because they cook. He has his food allergies. They cook so much stuff with like cream, and I'm always worried about peanuts. That's like the big thing. Yeah. So he can't have Kashmir.
Well, where do you go on the weekend to eat then? Out in LaGrange, you got a favorite place out there?
Well, we like there's a sushi place out here called Raw. We like that. Waylon, he doesn't eat sushi, but he can get chicken fried rice with no egg. And let's see. Waylon likes to eat at Hometown Pizza. He can do their spaghetti and meatballs. And there's I like 119 West Main. It's just a little local, like everything on the menu is good, but they have a humongous menu. Like I haven't even been close to trying all the things on the menu.
And that's why you go out to eat every weekend.
Right.
Go out and try new things on their menu.
Right.
So
and then they just opened a Mexican place called Ernesto's on Main Street, which I like a lot. So
nice. Shout out to all the new places too. I like that.
Yeah.
So what's your biggest fear in life?
My biggest fear, I guess, is losing one of my kids.
Yeah. No, that, of course. And you've worked so hard to.
I know. Can we just put them in bubble wrap before we send them out? I mean, even so, like last night, even, so I go, like Waylon's in the basement, and you should always be suspicious when your toddler is quiet. So Waylon's in the basement, I go downstairs, and the room smells really good. And I look over, and Waylon has sprayed Febreze on the sofa and licked it up. He licked up the Febreze.
That smells delicious.
He smelled amazing. But yeah, so I've, freaked out, called poison control, and they're like, well, air fresheners are usually just made up of mostly water, so he should be fine. Maybe he'll get sick to his stomach, but other than that, I was like, okay.
Again, with the bubble wrap, though.
Right. Maybe bubble wrap in my house, too.
Yes. So what would you say is your biggest success in life, something that you've overcome? What's something that you're proud of in your life?
That I was so determined to get pregnant that I got pregnant. That I pretty much did everything that I could do. And I mean, also I was one of the fortunate ones that, had family rally together and, scrape up funds and be able to allow us to do all of the procedures that we did.
Gotcha. Okay. And congratulations. It's wonderful that it paid off.
Yes.
Can't always obviously control that, but it's
right.
I'm really happy that it did. And so what's your biggest hope for, whether it's for yourself, for your kids, for the community? What would you like to see?
So I would I want my daughter to be successful, in whatever shape or form that takes. And I would like for, there to be, like I said, more accessibility and knowledge in one place of resources for parents that are, that have adopted or are considering adopting an older child, to make it easier for them so these older children can, find a home and find a place. Because I mean, I don't know the exact statistic, but I know that the foster care system in Kentucky is extremely overwhelmed. And it would be, it would help everybody if people felt comfortable enough to bring these kids into their home, knowing that they have, that support there for them. And I think that it would prevent also a lot of disruptions that happen. My daughter, she was placed in 3 homes before us. And I think a big reason of why we've just kept going, well, 1, we love her, but for 2, we're just determined people. We said before we even met her face to face, when we made the decision to meet her face to face, we said that we would never give up on her. So here we are, struggling for her, but yeah, if as a community, if we could have more resources that people could have, like, be aware of and have access to, and know exactly where to go to find those resources when they need them,
Yeah.
I think would be huge.
Sounds like some transparency would be nice too from the beginning.
Yeah. Yes.
Some
Yes.
transparency.
Absolutely.
Um, because, forewarned is forearmed, or whatever you want to say, but you don't know what you don't know, and then
Right.
you want to see this be a win-win for everyone to be able to work through this together.
Yes, absolutely. And like, so back to information, like, Jason was telling us, to ask for this packet that had all of her information in it. And I kept asking her social worker, and she would be like, "What packet?" Like, half the time she would just act dumb. And I'm like, what packet? Because I've been asking you about it forever. And then the day that she came over, that we were signing the paperwork saying that we were committing to adopt her, is the day that she brought the packet. So.
And is this a tiny packet of information, or is this a lot of
Oh,
it?
no, it's quite thick. It's a lot of papers.
Things that would have been helpful to know.
Yes.
Yeah, and if you knew that going in, then maybe you could have had some resources set up already from the beginning, instead of trying to play catch up for the next, however, I don't know how long it's been, but.
So she's been in our house for 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah. She moved in when she was 10, and she's 14 now. Yeah. And I understand, their fear is that we're going to see all this stuff and be like, run.
Right.
But we had already mentally committed to her before she even moved into our house, before we even met her. So, I mean, that it wasn't going to make us run, but it would have helped us be more prepared.
Yeah. And it just doesn't, I don't know. It feels sleazy or dirty, or I don't know. It just doesn't feel right to not be upfront with people. Just like, is that how you want relationships to start out? Like, can we start out relationships on a better foot than hiding information? And that's not healthy for a good relationship for anybody involved.
Right. And it's not like, you're hiding that, this puppy that I'm about to adopt pees on the carpet. It's like, you're hiding stuff that it could potentially be very life-changing for everyone involved.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, that it's just so unhealthy. And is the goal to get kids placed, just stick a kid in a house, or is a goal to help create happy families where people can be supported and have things taken care of? If the goal is merely placement, then I could see why you might hide things. But it seems like the goal should be, let's actually do a good thing here, where everyone benefits. Not just getting people off my roster or off my list or whatever. These are human beings. People involved are human beings who deserve love and care. The people who are being placed and the people who are taking them. So.
Right. And another thing that it just popped in my head. So we, I won't name what agency it is, but we adopted her through an agency who is contracted by the state. And when she was in our home before the adoption, she lived with us so she moved in July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March. So she was with us for 8 months before her adoption was final. And so during that 8 months, the agency provided, they provided support for Scott and I. They provided support, therapeutic services for. Everything was already set up. And then as soon as the adoption was final, they were like, "Oh, you're out on your own. Go find your own people."
Did you know that as you were leading down that path?
No, I mean, because I reached out to them and was like, you know, do you have any suggestions? And they were basically like, no.
All right.
Yeah, I was like, okay, great. So I think I need somebody that's trauma informed. And so that's like, I just started Googling. And then asking, like I asked Jason and he suggested somebody, but that person ended up not working. So yeah, I mean, really from the get-go of the adoption, we were just kind of like booted out. Hey, you got your kid. You figure it out.
Have a nice life.
Right. Hope it works out.
Yeah. Yeah. That's just not helpful. And there's a lot of things we could talk about with government programs where they just come to abrupt ends and people are cut off. That isn't super helpful. Instead of some sort of maybe titrating down and weaning people from a system and helping them to get things on the other side.
Right.
But that's for another day.
Yeah.
But, but I appreciate you sharing all this, and this is something that we can for sure. These are lessons that can be learned. Other people who are going down this path, people who are already going down this path might feel less alone, and hopefully somebody out there is listening, and we can create resources and information that actually helps instead of just a sink or swim mentality.
Right.
So open your heart, you never gave it a chance. And clear your mind, you never shared a glance. Isn't it funny that life is who I am?